Oh, it's recording now.
Great. So welcome to the webinar and thanks for joining us. So today is our second in our virtual roundtable series where we look at different topics relating to wellbeing at work. And today I'm delighted to welcome Louise Gaskell to the table to talk to us about the challenges of frequent flyers. Hi, Louise.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining.
So Louise is a corporate nutritionist with us at Super Wellness, and she's also for many years worked as cabin crew for a well-known airline. So Louise has flown both short haul and long haul for work, so she's really familiar with the challenges that people face when they travel very frequently for business. Louise has developed and delivered workshops for frequent flyers within Super Wellness. So today she'll be touching on some of the research that she's done and some of the advice that she shares in these workshops. So we'll be looking at around 30 minutes for the session in total. So I'll be interviewing Louise for the first 20 minutes. So if you don't mind muting yourselves during that time. And then the last 10 minutes we'll open up for questions. So Louise, first question to you. What are the potential health risks for frequent flyers?
Thanks, Angela. So I think anyone who flies regularly for business, so sort of once or twice a month, long haul minimum, there's going to be some short-term impacts that you're going to feel, but also some potentially long-term effects. And the reason for this is because we're working against the body's natural rhythm. So we all have a circadian rhythm, a 24-hour cycle. And, you know, if you're crossing 6 or 7 time zones, you can't expect to do that without any kind of negative effects. So, you know, you're really just working against what is natural in the body. So I think some of the short-term things that that you might feel, I mean, thinking about the cabin environment, so it's very dry, there's a real lack of humidity. The cabin is typically pressurised between 8 and 10,000 feet, so, you know, you're effectively at altitude, so there are some effects with that as well, so a lower level of oxygen. The air quality is not what it would be if we were on the ground. Then we've got lovely things like cosmic radiation, going through X-ray machines, for example. So there is a bit of an assault on the body, really, when we fly. So in the short term, you're probably going to feel quite dry and thirsty, a bit dehydrated, obviously tired, and feeling, you know, like you've got insomnia. I think in the long term, cabin crew, flight crew, and people who travel regularly, much more prone to weight gain. Hormones tend to be all over the place. It's going to affect your detoxification processes. And then you're also at more risk of things like type 2 diabetes and stroke and heart attack. Mental health as well, often underestimated, but such is an issue that some of the big airlines actually offer a counselling service to the cabin crew, so it definitely is an issue. The immune system is really compromised when we fly, and some of this is also just the lack of sleep and the disruption to sleep. We do know that people who sleep 5 hours or less a night are 4 times more likely to catch a cold. Production of natural killer cells is reduced. So your natural killer cells are going to fight cancer, for example. So there is a real impact from lack of sleep. Things that cabin crew will typically complain about will be things like IBS. A lot of people really struggle to get pregnant, insomnia, mental health issues, and lots of digestive problems as well, very, very common. Frequent flyers also much more likely statistically to make poor food choices, and a tendency to self-medicate, things like caffeine, alcohol, sleeping pills, Valium, all kinds of things that you can pick up in Bangkok, for example. And there can be this sort of tendency to just sort of be in a vicious cycle of, on one hand, caffeine, and then on the other hand, sort of sleeping pills, and you know, there's this sort of disparity really, and it's very confusing to an already tired and stressed body. So I think anyone who travels regularly, there is an increased need to really look after yourself.
Yeah, so definitely lots of challenges there. So what would be your advice then to individuals who want to really look after their well-being in spite of all those challenges?
Well, I think, first of all, if you are travelling and you've got the control over it, choose the best quality hotel that you can for your budget, preferably one that has a really good gym or a health space with a swimming pool, maybe a steam room and sauna, because I think it's really important that you try and get some exercise before work, and also it's going to help you to sort of come down again and to relax at the other end of the scale. I would try and pick somewhere that has a nice outside space rather than a hotel like in the middle of a, you know, an industrial estate or in the middle of a highway section. You really want to be getting outside as much as you can, but particularly in the morning, you need some direct sunlight, around about 15 minutes, so that this will just help your body clock to reset. So somewhere where there's some nice opportunities to look after the physical being. And also, I think that I would try and choose a hotel where you can actually open the window in your bedroom. It's increasingly more difficult to find, especially with these purpose-built hotels, and especially in America. But for me personally, and this is the one thing that crew say all the time, if there's a window you can open, you sleep a million times better. No one ever sleeps well in an air-conditioned room. You're just going to wake up stuffy. And don't forget, you've just gone from an air-conditioned aircraft to airport, the bus, and then you're going to be in an air-conditioned room. So as much air, natural air as you can get, then obviously it makes sense you're going to feel better. I think I would try and plan the trip around the time change. So I usually use two examples, and I do talk about these in length at the actual frequent flyer workshop. So Hong Kong, you've got a +8 hour time change. So if you say you're arriving on day one of your business trip, usually the Hong Kong flights are going to arrive late afternoon, early evening. So if then you've got business meetings planned for the next morning, just bear in mind that 9 o'clock in the morning, their time is 1 a.m. for you. So you're not going to be on top form. You've probably had a terrible night's sleep the night before if you managed to get to sleep. It's the middle of the night for you, so you're not going to be at your optimum performance. So if you've got any control in it, your afternoon is by far the best window for you. Other side of the world, Los Angeles, you've got a -8 hour time change. So 9 o'clock in the morning is going to be 5 o'clock in the afternoon for you. So that's really your best window, a breakfast meeting, or cram all your stuff into the morning, because by the time it gets to lunchtime and beyond, you're going to be feeling quite fatigued. Start off with a really good breakfast. If you get breakfast right, it generally tends to follow that your day you tend to make better choices as you go along. So what we're looking for is to balance blood sugar levels, because what we do know is that when we've had a poor night's sleep, we can eat 200 to 300 calories more per day, just because our appetite hormones have become a bit dysregulated. So it needs to be high in protein, so a couple of poached eggs or a couple of boiled eggs, maybe some oatmeal and some porridge, some fruit, nuts and seeds. That will get you on your way. If you can try and stay away from the pastries, you will feel the better for it. Caffeine, yeah, I can see that you would probably be looking forward to a cup in the morning, especially if you've been feeling tired. Just be mindful that it can stay in your system for 12 hours afterwards. Up to 20 to 25% of it can still be there. And you really don't want to be getting in the way of sleeping later on. So I would restrict caffeine to the sort of earlier part of the day. And then try and eat to support your immune system. So again, I really talk about this in depth at the workshop. So really about having some key nutrients to support immunity. So vitamin A, C and E, and some targeted herbs as well is really going to help you.
And Louise, what's your take on airline food and, importantly, drink?
Okay, so, well, I guess really it depends who you're travelling with, perhaps what class you're travelling in as well. I do tend to take my own as much as I can. If you are bringing your own on board, just be aware of the liquids restrictions through security, landside, and then also if you're travelling somewhere like America or Australia, you're not allowed to take anything in, so you'd have to eat it on board. But if you just take something like nuts and seeds and a little bit of fruit on board, then you've got some healthy snacks. If you are eating the plain foods, I would tend to try and eat, if you've got any control over it, at the time that it would be in your destination rather than the time it is for you, and keep it light. Not try and choose something that's a little bit lighter, salad, maybe a starter, rather than a big heavy meal. I wouldn't drink alcohol if possible. You know, yes, it might make you feel relaxed, but I'd try and save alcohol for when you're actually going on a holiday trip rather than a business trip, because I think you do pay for it, and it's going to really dehydrate you a lot further. Same with caffeine as well. I think if you can really keep it to a minimum, or try and have herbal teas instead.
That's really helpful advice. And what about the employers then? What would you say they could do to best support their frequent flyers?
So be kind to your frequent flyers. Everybody thinks it's so glamorous, flying around the world for business. And, you know, the reality is, I've chatted to many business travellers over the years, and, you know, we all kind of bond over our tiredness and swapping tips, etc. You know, the reality is you're away from home, you are missing important occasions. It can be lonely and it's tiring, and, you know, it's sometimes you're awake at 3 a.m. in the morning, and, you know, so it's not all it's cracked up to be. So do be kind to your frequent flyers. The effects of flying, it's going to extend way beyond the actual trip itself. So you really need to implement a robust wellbeing plan that's going to support your staff. So something that includes good nutrition, something on sleep, something on jet lag, mental health, includes strategies on stress, and also relaxation and mindfulness, meditation, etc. Because I believe that if you have a strategy that includes all of these things, then you actually do need to take advantage of all of these things in order to build resilience towards travelling. Give them the day off, the day they get back from a flight, if that is possible. You do meet many people who, you know, they've just flown in from LA and they're off straight to work. Tiredness accounts for the vast majority of road traffic accidents. So, you know, are they going to be at their best at work? Probably not. So give them a day off. That'll make them feel really valued, and that'll give them a chance to do a bit of relaxation, to sort of catch up on a bit of sleep, and to sort of rebuild themselves, ready for the next day at work.
I'm sure they'll appreciate that advice. Thanks, Louise. So we'll open up for questions now, and see if there's any questions from around the table.
Yeah, I was wondering, Louise, if you had any suggestions about how people could help manage their sort of when they eat and their digestion, because that often gets disrupted when people are travelling. Have you got any tips there?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really, really common complaint from the crew, that their digestive system just doesn't work properly. And I think the reason for this is because, you know, you're often, instead of being asleep and detoxifying and eliminating possibly, you're actually not. You're awake and then you're eating. So it's about eating the right thing. So I think if you're talking about eating at the time that's not natural for you, I would just keep it as light as possible, and nothing too heavy and rich. I think on the flight, I would stay away from things like bread. It sort of instantly bloats people. And then just choose some foods that we know help to stimulate digestion. So bitter leaves, things like watercress, rocket, Pineapple has got natural digestive enzymes in it, so that always helps. You can use herbal teas, and I think just listen to your body as well. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyone else? So I have a couple of questions that came in as well from people who couldn't attend, and one of them that I thought was quite funny. Is there a cure for jet lag?
There isn't, because if there was, every single cabin crew member and pilot would be doing it. There isn't, unfortunately. You know, like I say, you can't cross 8 time zones in 12 hours and expect to feel all right. You know, typically it's going to take 1 day per hour for your body to get back to normal. But I believe, and it's been my personal experience from flying long haul years ago, that you can accelerate that if you work on building your resilience from within, and then with some unique strategies that I do talk about in a bit more detail in the workshop, that you can accelerate this process and recover quicker than you would do. So you
can build up your resilience over time to it.
I think you can. I think you can, and I've seen the benefits myself. I'm feeling substantially better than I used to do when I didn't, let's say, look after myself as well as I should have done. But you know, the reality is you are not going to feel great for where you've been. It's going to take a while for your body to spring back.
Good to know you can mitigate it anyway.
Yeah.
So another question was a very practical one. What happens if you wake up in the middle of the night? What would you recommend doing?
Oh, right. Okay. What, and you can't get back to sleep?
Yeah. Which happened to me a couple of weeks ago when I was away. So.
And what did you do?
I ended up getting up and reading a book, because I was so awake I couldn't lie there any longer. It was just daylight awake. So.
And you just get really frustrated, don't you? So I think, first of all, make sure that your room is conducive to sleep. So, you know, earplugs, eye shade. Make sure that it's cool as well. The optimum temperature for sleeping is around about 18 degrees. So you don't want to crank up the heating too much, otherwise it's not the best. It needs to be, it's about core body temperature. So as long as you've got those things in place, we all find ourselves awake at the wrong time when we're flying. I would say, and what's worked for me in the past, if you've been lying there for about 20 minutes, just get up and change your scenery and do something really boring, like iron your shirt for the next day, or there's usually some boring reading material in the room. Read that. You could go and have a bath. I think the worst thing you could do is start turning on devices and getting that blue light into your eyes. I wouldn't even turn the TV on, although some people do find that helps. I think you probably did the right thing there. But you magnesium spray can be quite useful as well.
That's a good thought. Yeah. And what's your take on melatonin then?
Melatonin?
Yeah, medicate with melatonin.
Yeah, well, for years it wasn't passed by the UK, and you still not freely available in the UK. Cabin crew are not allowed to take melatonin. I think I've used it once on holiday. Some people do use it, I think, as a short-term, occasional thing, maybe. I certainly wouldn't use it in the long term. I would look to food sources to increase melatonin. Again, that is something that I do talk about in more detail in the workshop, but things like sour cherries can help to increase melatonin. So I wouldn't use it, I wouldn't rely on it. And I think certainly if you're just relying on one thing to kind of help you through jet lag, it's probably not going to work. It's more a combination of things.
Great, that's good to know. So any more questions before we close the session?
Just a couple of thoughts, Louise, when you were talking about being kind to your employees. And I was thinking, you know, if you go on a long haul holiday, you might treat yourself to a massage before you get on a flight, because I often find that helps me sleep and relax on a flight. And I was thinking that might be something an employer could maybe offer as part of the wellbeing package when people are doing long haul. Would you think that was a good idea?
I think they'd be delighted with that. Yeah, absolutely. Because often, you know, people arrive to the airplane stressed. You know, they've been on the tube, they've been through security. You know, generally, I think travelling for people these days is really quite stressful. Gone are the glamour days of white gloves and hats, and you know, people do find it stressful. And so, yeah, I think anything that's going to help you relax it's a good thing, definitely, yeah.
And the other thing that I was thinking about was, do employers need to think more about doing medical screening for people that are, you know, week in and week out traveling globally?
Possibly, yeah. I do think that could be something that's, if that's something that's offered and the employee wants to take advantage of it, I think that it could be a positive thing, yeah. I mean, in combination with offering support on the holistic side as well, so such as, you know, access to mental health workshops and support and nutrition and fitness. I think it's just about giving as much support as you can, really.
Yeah.
We do know that flying can really disrupt blood sugar levels, particularly. So that is, you know, even one bad night's sleep can disrupt your blood sugar levels for that one day. So imagine if you're perpetually doing that, then, you know, it's easy for people to sort of slip over into imbalanced blood sugar levels. So, yeah, I mean, I think testing and anything that any resources that you can provide to enhance their well-being has got to be a good thing.
Great.
Okay. So I think we're about to wrap up. So thanks ever so much, Louise, for your fantastic insights, and thanks to our guests for joining us. Hope you found it useful today. So if you have any questions or anything you'd like to discuss with Louise regarding how to better support your employees who are frequent flyers, then you can contact us. Feel free to email us on info@superwellness.co.uk, and we look forward to seeing you again very soon on another webinar. Bye everyone.
Thanks, Angela. Can you switch record?